want it to be long enough that I got some play room, but I don't want it too long that it gets obstructive. So maybe about right there. Just going to pre-tin that connection. Actually, it needs to be the center one, so I'm going to pre-tin this center one here. And then I'm also going to pre-tin the wire. Add a little extra flux in the wire to help it bite. That's on, and then I should add a bit of heat shrink tubing to at least this center one. The edge ones don't matter so much because they can't really go in contact with each other, but this one does. So I'm going to take the smallest heat shrink tubing I have and slide it over here like so. Probably just use the heat of the soldering iron to get it to grip on there. And that's probably good. Yeah, it feels like it's tight. And this now can be soldered onto this face right here, but I think it might be smarter for me to do the other wires first. So pre-tin, pre-tin, add a little extra flux to the wire. Well, I got the positive for the USB already connected, but I got to still do the other ones. What I did is I soldered on a wire to act as an extension here, and then used heat shrink tubing to, of course, reinforce it. Now that I think about it, I probably should have done the LED modification first before I did all this stuff, but you live and learn, right? So I'm gonna tin this a little bit. Maybe add a little fresh solder onto here. Just a little dip in some flux. That's attached now, and then this needs to attach right there. And theoretically, that actually should be the alternate switches working. So one way to test that is let's plug in this USB, turn the thing on, and it's not on when the switch is this way. Let's switch the switch the other way. Okay. So theoretically, if I have the switch in its off position, I'm going to unplug this just to be safe, but I have the switch in this off position and I put the batteries in, the light should turn on. And it is. And if I switch it over to the other position, it should turn off because the current is no longer able to flow in that direction. All right, that seems good. Now if I plug the USB in, when it's flipped in this position, it should be on now. When it's flipped in this position, it should be on. There we go. It now can work off of battery and USB completely independently. So I can keep batteries in here and keep it plugged into USB without having to worry about taking the batteries out, not having to worry about the batteries damaging the USB or the USB blowing up the batteries. All right, that is one part of this modification done. Also, I made a mistake with the epoxy because somehow the epoxy still managed to seep its way into the switch, and I've been having to try and move it constantly in order to stop the epoxy from actually like full on hardening inside of the switch and making the switch unusable, because that means I'd have to take everything off again, which no thank you. No thank you at all. Alright, so the other thing I wanted to do is I wanted to add a fade effect to the light when I turn it on or off. And the best way to do that would be to probably, well, not the best way, but the simplest way would probably be to add a capacitor across the LED. I'm just looking through capacitors right now, don't mind me. And basically, as the capacitor charges up, it will ramp up the voltage slowly or slowerly compared to non-capacitor based lighting. Now, one thing I do have a problem with here is that the chips that I have are like this, and they are bigger than the one that's already down there. They won't actually line up. Maybe if I cut off all but the very ends and I fold it down a little bit, I can get it to work. But I also want to try and get this capacitor in there. But then that's going to be blocking the light, so I probably would have to have the capacitor across the positive and the negative inside of the case. Which... I'm sure there's going to be a way I can do it. I just got to figure it out. I literally could just have it hanging loose over here somewhere. Let's first try and figure out what to do about this. If I did run wires from off of here into the case for the capacitor, then that would potentially allow me to have extra room to solder this on, which might be what I have to go with. This should be positive this side and negative the other way. So, start up my soldering iron again. We're going to desolder the surface mount chip here. Give me 1 second. I don't know if you guys could hear that buzzing in the background a second ago, but this is what I just found flying around my house. Looks like it might be a honeybee of some kind. I, of course, will be letting him outside because I like bees. Bees are good. Screw wasps, but bees are okay in my book. But yeah, you heard a little bit of a buzzing. Apparently it was this guy. I don't even know how he got in. Come on, buddy. Time for you to be set free. So now on to desoldering the surface mount chip. Should have done this before I wired up all the other different stuff. That was kind of dumb in my part, and a lesson I should have learned a long time ago when doing stuff like this. There we go. Oh, that's why. Okay. It was soldered in the center too. Center too to look like for heat sink purposes. Well, I guess if this already came desoldered, I might as well desolder the rest of it and then resolder it afterwards, because it will be easier to work with. Yeah, I do think I can make this work, though I'm going to be using thermal compound, not a direct solder to the board. Okay, so my idea is that if I solder the wires like this, it'll give me some extra room to solder the leads on too. If I do that in both directions, this will be the wires for the capacitor, or at least if I do it on the one side. So that's the plan right now. So I'm gonna solder the wires sticking out like that. No idea if this is gonna work, by the way. This is Should be considered completely experimental. I'm just checking to see. So you know what? I could actually... Oh, you know, that might even be a better option. Because the DC output is actually the same channel. So I could... I didn't even think about that. I can mount the lights like this, directly across, this being the positive and this being the negative. It's not going to be perfectly center, which does admittedly annoy me a lot, but it will be much more sensical. So if I were to put that positive being right here, the negative being right there, yeah, that should theoretically line up perfectly. So let me just actually take that back off because I got to add some thermal compound. This is super liquidy. Is this master gel? Like super liquidy. Hopefully it works for this purpose. Actually trim this lead to be a little bit smaller. But seriously, another bee in the house? Where the hell are you guys coming from? Didn't actually get the best coverage with that thermal paste, so I'm gonna add a little bit more in there. Meanwhile, apparently I have bees invading my house. Then I can actually solder the wire directly to that, because it will be actually the same thing in reality. Ugh, that is messy thermal compound. Ugh. Yeek. All over everything now. So, the one thing is that I could theoretically, where's that capacitor at from earlier? Could theoretically solder the capacitor directly across like this. Without it potentially obstructing the light that much. I also got to put these positive and negative wires back on. So let me do that first. Make sure this light is even lighting before I go any further. My mods are never the cleanest, are they? I have just come to accept that for the most part. Because of the camera, you guys can actually see more than I can. It's, the angle's much better for the camera. But I want you guys to be able to see what the hell I'm doing. Alright. Moment of truth. Is this even gonna work? Ah, yeah. There you go. Warm light goodness. And when we actually put the diffusion filter on, you shouldn't really be able to tell that it's off center because there's very strong diffusion on it. Alright, perfect. So, let's see about this capacitor. Like I said, I could. I don't know. I think it's worth a shot. I think what I should do is I think I should just go for it and try and solder the capacitor directly across this positive and negative, like so here. Technically speaking, though, I'm just going to try it right here first. We'll see if it what it does. Basically, it'll take longer for it to charge up this capacitor to the voltage that it needs to be at in order to light the LED. I think I should actually go after the resistor, but... Will that fit inside of the bulb? Yes, yes it will. Will it look really weird when it's on? Oops. I guess we will see. There's another bee buzzing in the background. I'm gonna find out there's like a huge nest of carpenter bees in my wall or something. You guys wonder what happened to me. Turns out I was carried off by bees. Okay, okay. Yeah. You guys see that? It now has a fade on and off. The on one isn't as noticeable, but the off one is definitely noticeable. And you know what? I can kind of see the capacitor in there, which kind of sucks. But only from the one side, a little bit. Maybe I should just call that good. Because, you know, I'm thinking, the more I mess around with this, the more likely it's going to be for me to accidentally destroy something, which I'm very good at doing. So I think I might try and push the capacitor a little bit farther forward. And, yeah, that's much less noticeable now. Much less noticeable. So, yeah, I think that's just something I'm going to have to live with. So I'm going to reassemble this thing, and we're going to do one final test to make sure everything's working a-okay. So give me a second after I'm done reassembling. Alright, now it all comes down to the moments of truth. First thing is, does it still work? So this is the battery pack USB. Yeah, look at that. That's nice, actually. I like that. I'll have to see what it looks like at night. Okay, so that works. Does the toggle switch work? Okay, technically that should be off because there's no batteries in. If I put these batteries in, it should turn on. Okay. If I unplug this, it should still be on. There should be no issue with it. And if I switch it the other way, it should be off. Okay. Now theoretically, if I have both of these plugged in, either way it is, it should turn off then on because it's switching power sources just like with our circuit. You can tell this is definitely the USB and this is the rechargeable. The USB is significantly brighter. Even with that resistor in series, just because much higher potential current draw, higher voltage, and so forth. Also, I think these nickel cadmium batteries might be close to death. Let me recharge these real quick. So, my suspicion was correct, and when I went to go pop these on the charger, one of them was at 0.98 volts, which for these type of batteries is pretty much flat dead. So, let's see how it looks now. They've been charged up. Okay, so that's them. And then the USB. That's USB. So that's more what I was expecting to see. Brightness wise, they're both pretty close in brightness now. I recently cut off my fingernails and I cut my thumbnail a little bit too short, so it's actually kind of painful manipulating the switch. So you could of course use the nickel metal hydride batteries in here instead, or you could use the alkalines if you wanted more capacity but you didn't want the ability to recharge. Or of course, if you really wanted to, you could use the heavy duty batteries or the super heavy duty batteries, which probably won't get you very much battery life at all, but you could if you wanted to. And then also you can use either a rechargeable USB battery pack, or you can actually use a permanent USB source like plugging it into your vehicle, for instance, or so forth. So yeah, I think that this actually was a pretty good modification overall. Once again, fade on, slower on, fade off. I like that too. It just looks better, it looks more professional. It's funny how much just these modifications have added weight to this. So let's see what this looks like in a dark room.
So overall, I'm pretty happy with this mod. The light is bright enough to light a room and still see pretty well in, as these phone camera pictures can show. This bulb has been pretty fun to mod and experiment with, but I think this is the last video I'm going to do on it. I hope you guys liked watching, and will please consider leaving a like, a comment, and subscribing if you haven't already. Thank you guys very much, and bye!